Hey everybody, happy Wednesday and welcome back to the Hack Show. So for today's show, I've got a very special guest, John Jeffrey. He's been on the show before. He is the person responsible for the Buffalo Rock City CD, which was to raise money for the homeless in Western New York. But he's also a massive Kiss fan, has a very long history with the band, and has interviewed them all and done fanzines and all kinds of stuff. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to get into this album spotlight. This is Rock and Roll Over, which is my personal favorite Kiss album of all time. So without further ado, welcome, John. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Nice ring, man. I see that. Awesome. Very cool.
What's going on, man? How are you doing, Walt?
Not too bad. How are you, man?
Excellent. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for being on. So let me say hello to a few folks that have popped in here. John Z351 is giving his fortunately he's not able to be here, but he's going to watch the replay. He's a big Kiss fan. Dale Palmer's with us. Our buddy Gene is watching us on the chat. Sandra Picorni, thank you so much for doing your mod duty, Sandra. Much appreciated. Rebel Rockers with us. Daniel Horsley, Gary Holt, welcome everybody. Carp Dog, Guitar Man 45, Brian S. Hope you're enjoying your holidays, buddy. CK is with us. Awesome. So I was in the introduction, I was talking about your long history with the band. So let's just start with that. So like, how old were you when you first got into Kiss, and what got you into Kiss to begin with?
I was 4. And yeah, and at the time, my parents were separated, and my mom was she just passed away in January. So sorry if I get emotional about that. My mom, she was very much like just average, radio listener. Whatever was on the radio, you know, she would play. But my dad, he was like the music lover. He had like the old school stereo cabinet with the big speakers and all the vinyl. So when I would go spend time with my dad, I would look through all of his vinyl, and this was, must have been 76, 77. There was Destroyer, so of course, being a kid, looking through all the album covers, first Van Halen album, and, all this stuff, I always kept going back to the Kiss album, Destroyer, just because of the visual aspect.
Yeah, cover's amazing.
Yeah. And then just, listening to it, it was just like, God of Thunder with all the sound effects and the car crash in Detroit Rock City, and, even the trippy fanfare, rock and roll party, just all that stuff, being so young, hearing that, it was just like a, menagerie of sights and sound, and that's what really got me. They got their hooks in me.
Well, yeah, I mean that when they get their hooks in you, I'm 54, and it's lifelong. I mean, when they hit you at the right age, for me it was about 10, and then like that's it.
then you're broke.
Yeah. Every quarter, dime, oh, I'm gonna get that latest 16 magazine because they're on the cover, it's like,
right.
yeah.
And just to fast forward, that was the reason why I started. Well, one of the reasons why I started my own Kiss fan magazine is because, like you, I would go every week. I would go up to local grocery store down the street from my house, and I would go and I'd look at all the circus and the hit parader and find that half-inch article.
Yeah.
I'd scan a whole magazine looking for that little blurb
A
on
nugget.
the band, right? And I'm like, how cool would it be if there was a magazine that was nothing but Kiss, right? So you wouldn't have to go and read. Not that Circus and Hit Parader, not all the those magazines weren't great, but being a Kiss fan, if you could just get one central magazine all about Kiss, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to start my own Kiss fan magazine. And the other reason too was, growing up and being such a fan, is I really wanted to meet the band. So what I did is, as you probably recall, pulling out the vinyl and looking at all the the credits and everything, you would always see Kiss is managed by, and it would say Kiss is managed by Glickman Marks, and it would have the street address in New York City. So this was obviously way before Google and Yellow Pages and all that. I'd call up, what they had back then was information. You called up information and you could ask for a phone number, either by name or address, any city in the United States. And so I gave them the address, see if they had a number for the Kiss offices, and they did. And I called up the Kiss offices, and I could tell that they were surprised to hear somebody as young as I was calling. And I just basically said, I'm a Kiss fan. What do I have to do to talk to Kiss? And they're like, well, Kiss only talks to people who write for magazines. So immediately I go, so if I had my own magazine, Kiss would talk to me? And they go, yeah. So that kind of connected the two things. Like I said,
awesome.
Thinking that it would be cool for there to be some sort of, all Kiss type magazine. And then the fact of being able to achieve my dream at the time of being able to meet the band, or at least talk to them, if I started my own, that I'd be able to achieve that goal. So that's when I started the Kiss Underground, when I was 15, 16 years old in 1987. And I did. I'm sorry.
Who's the first guy that you were able to interview for the magazine?
Eric Carr.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Probably the most approachable of the bunch at that point, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, I mean, all of them were always really, really nice to me. I'm sure probably that seeing that I was a young kid, and they wanted to be, polite and everything, but also that I knew my shit. I was, for as young as I was very knowledgeable. It wasn't like they were just talking to some person that, when they would do their day of interviews, they would talk to somebody that just interviewed Quiet Riot and Twisted Sister, and then Kiss was the third artist they were interviewing that day. They were talking to somebody that literally lived, breathed, ate, Kiss 24/7, and I knew what I was talking about, and they definitely picked up on that, and they appreciated that. So but Eric Carr was definitely, as a lot of people have pointed out, very fan friendly, and he was definitely awesome to me. Every time I interviewed him, every time I met him, he was great.
Cool. So did you get around to all of them? Did you get to Gene and Paul, and I don't know who the guitarist would have been at that point? Would that have been already Bruce?
Yeah, Bruce Kulick at the time. This was actually Crazy Nights in '87. One your favorite your favorite Kiss album.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was the time that I actually met them. And throughout that time, I from 87 to 2007, I ran the Kiss Underground, and I released 40 issues of the fanzine. And through that time, I interviewed every single member, former, current, past, present, every member who was ever in Kiss, I interviewed.
Oh, that's awesome. That's up. So I mean, I don't want to go through every interview, but any highlights, anything that kind of sticks in your mind?
I definitely have to say, interviewing Gene. Most of my interviews that I did were on the phone. So when I got the opportunity to do some of the interviews in person, interviewing Peter Criss in person, interviewing Gene Simmons in person, that was a little more intimidating than, talking to them on the phone. Also, but as far as just interviews as a whole, I have to say Sean Delaney was probably my favorite Kiss related interview that I ever did, because that guy was there from the beginning, and he was just a great storyteller. And he had so many stories, and he just was so involved in depth and everything that Kiss was to the show that we see today. He was there, and he created it. So, to be able to talk to Sean and hear all of his insight was really great.
It's funny you mentioned Sean. They used to have Kiss conventions here in Toronto, where I live. They had them like every year in the 90s. And I mean, Bruce Kulick. I've met and spent time with any guy in Kiss with Bruce Kulick. I talked to Bruce Kulick a number of times, but and then Mark St. John, and they did. They'd have. But one year they brought Bill Aucoin and Sean Delaney, and I would say in terms of like Kiss fan and geekdom, and definitely the most interesting guy. I mean, I to sit down and talk to Sean Delaney, like it was amazing. And I remember saying to Sean, I mean, he passed not too long after that, but I remember saying to Sean, like, man, you got to come more to these things. You're like the best guest we've ever had at these things, because he was such an interesting dude, man. So it's such a cool dude,
Yeah, and Mitch Weisman,
Hey, man.
as far as a guy who can tell stories, man. I mean, he is a great storyteller. And I don't mean facetious stories. I just mean the way that he paints a picture with telling, any situation that he's been involved in with the band. You could totally just envision it just by hearing him telling the story. It's great. And
Yeah.
Sean was like that too.
Yeah, and I mean, Sean's not being facetious at all. I mean, we're gonna talk about this record. His name is on this record as co-writer.
Oh yeah,
many tunes. He was there, man. He was, the early choreography, all that stuff. That was Sean. He was telling Gene how to move with the bass. He was telling Paul, how to shake his hair and
yeah. Well,
all that stuff.
That was the thing that Sean told me, is that a lot of people would say what you just said, early choreography. According to Sean, again, this is according to him, he said that there was zero choreography when he got involved with the band, that they weren't doing anything, that there was no moves, there was no show, there was no nothing, and basically everything that you see as part as like the Kiss show, from the Deuce sway to Gene's bass solo, the way it was designed, the way he dripped the blood, so many things, from Paul's stage raps to just the way that they would address the audience, all came from Sean. And again, he's not here to defend himself, but I mean, according to him, that's where most of the Kiss show we see today, even in 2020, now 2021.
I mean, that's the formula, and that's the formula they've been. Well, they started, stopped, and started again, so they put the makeup back on. all that choreography came back. The end of the show, Ace going down on his knees, Black Diamond, the whole thing. I mean, that's, anyways, yeah, very cool, man. Very cool. Yeah. So, Mitch Weisman has joined us. Hey, Mitch, nice to see you in here. Jay Richardson, not a Kiss fan. Sorry, man. This is a Kiss show. Got to pull these out once in a while. Janice joined us. Who else? Iroxy Blues, welcome. We got a few. Cecil Music, nice to see you. Cool. So we were talking about off air about this. Now there's a whole. Well, let's before we get into the songs in the actual record. Let's talk about some of the events kind of surrounding the band around this time. So, I mean, this was after, of course, Destroyer, which was by far their most produced album. Had a lot of outside elements, outside of music, sound effects, and orchestras, and choirs, and all this kind of thing. And this album was really kind of a reaction to that, and kind of they wanted to get back to a more sort of stripped down, rock band sound to kind of appease the fans, because a lot of fans, at least initially, didn't really like the direction of the Destroyer record, and they kind of wanted to go back to they wanted their old Kiss. So this is sort of a hark back to the earlier albums, like, Hotter Than Hell, Dressed to Kill, Kiss, and so on. So, but one of the things that they tried to do on this record is they try to, in the studio record, try to approach the most live sound possible. And they recorded this at the Star Theater in Nanuet, New York, which is a theater in the Round. And they basically set up all their gear on this platform, right? And they had Peter in a bathroom, like on another level, and all this kind of thing. They were trying to make it sound as big as possible, and they brought Eddie Kramer back as a producer. So what do you know about the actual, we were talking about some minutia about the recording of this record. So what do you give me some details that you might know, John, because you're cool stuff there.
Yeah, well, ironically, the original plan was that Kiss wanted to do more records with Bob Ezrin after Destroyer. Their original plan wasn't to go with Eddie Kramer and to do what Rock and Roll Over became. They wanted to basically see what Bob Ezrin could do as far as shaping Kiss even more than what he did on Destroyer, and creating more of a creative musical relationship. But that didn't work out because Bob had other artists that he had lined up to work for after doing Destroyer. So when that wasn't an option, that's when they decided to go back with Eddie Kramer and try to do, as you had stated, more of a traditional type Kiss record. Definitely, something they always tried to do from the first albums. They always tried to capture their live sound on record, in the studio, and they always kind of felt that they failed at doing so, which I'd have to agree with them, because, Hotter Than Hell, the debut album, Dressed to Kill, not even Destroyer really sounds like what it sounds like live. So, they were really trying to, essentially recreate that live sound, and that was why they did it in a theater and rented out the theater and started recording there. And one of the first things that they tried to do was to get that really big live drum sound. and they had Eddie Kramer had these special microphones that he used to mic the drum set, and they had tried positioning his drum set in different areas of the theater. At one point, instead of having it, center stage on the stage of the theater, they actually had it set up in the bathroom. And so the band was in another part of the theater, and Peter was in the bathroom, and he was communicating between the band and Eddie Kramer with a little TV screen that he set up in the bathroom. So that was pretty interesting.
You made up. So see that point you were saying about them continuing with Bob Ezrin. See, I wasn't aware of that. What I understood was that this was basically they were doing this because of initial fan reaction to Destroyer, and also the fact that Ace did not like working with Bob, and much preferred working with Eddie Kramer. So, it's interesting that you mentioned that they would have kept on with Ezrin had he been available. So I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, look at the success that Destroyer brought the band. As much as Ace and Peter may not have liked working with Ezrin, as they say, money talks. And Destroyer was huge for them. So if they could have made a Destroyer 2 or Destroyer 3, they weren't going to turn that down. But as it worked out, Bob Ezrin wasn't available. So Eddie Kramer was definitely, I think that was the right choice for them to do. But initially, that wasn't the plan. The plan was to stick with Ezrin.
Well, because at that point too, like Beth already had made it. Like Beth was what saved that record and sort of turned their career around at that point. So it kind of makes sense they'd want to try for another record with Bob Ezrin. But I hadn't heard that before, so that's kind of interesting. So Peter was in another room communicating through a camera, and he was doing goofy stuff. And I mean, at that point, they were already the rich rock stars and all this sort of thing. But one thing that's interesting is, and they were already kind of in that vein when Destroyer was being done because of the success of Kiss Alive. But what's interesting about this record, and I think this speaks to the whole Eddie Kramer Ace Frehley connection, which of course Ace used them again later on for a solo record, that I guess Ace enjoying working with Eddie, that Ace is all over this album. He did not go and play cards or get drunk or not show up. He plays on this record, which is very, very cool.
Well, Ace had actually talked about that in some interviews, as he was, he addressed what has been said about him and his lack of participation or interest in Destroyer. And he just felt that the way that Bob treated him was just like, he was very dismissive of Ace. And he felt that if Bob would have approached him more in a nurturing type environment, that he would have got more out of Ace. And that's what Ace described that Eddie Kramer did for him with Rock and Roll Over, is they would literally go out and they would research different amplifiers that he could, record with, different guitars, working on guitar sounds, and really trying again to hone in on Ace's skill set and nurture him in that recording atmosphere. And Ace really enjoyed that because obviously, he used, Eddie for his solo album. He, and arguably his best solo album outside of Kiss, Trouble Walking, I think that is hands down Ace's best guitar sound on any record ever, is on Trouble Walking. And that was something, Eddie Kramer was the one responsible for. So
and in interviews and stuff, whenever Ace talks about recording, he always mentions that he learned everything he knows about recording from Eddie Kramer. Like, he was real patient in not just recording Ace, but explaining how the whole process was done. So that was a relationship that went on for years after this record, for sure. So Yeah, let's get into this. So my rock and roll over. I don't know if you can see that, but Gene and Paul signed it. And I fortunately have met everyone and kissed myself, except funny enough, the only person I haven't spent time with is Ace Frehley, which is a regret. But everyone else I pretty much have spent a little bit of time with. But let's go through this record. So first song, I Want You, Paul Stanley. And Paul at that time always liked the idea of having songs that kind of started mellow and then kind of blew up, you know. Black Diamond would be another example of that, where it has like a mellow start and then the song just kind of kicks off. Rock Bottom would be another one. And he did the same sort of formula, if you will, on I Want You. Um, I that's it's one of my favorite songs. I love the intro on it. I love his vocal on it. It's a great riff. It's really fun to play. And another thing on this record, which is something that they did later on, is both Paul and I believe isn't that a split solo between Paul and Ace on that?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's something that they was that the first no was that the first song they did that where they split solos, or did they do it earlier? Did they do it on Come On and Love Me?
No, I think that might be the first. I mean, they did the harmony solo together.
Oh, Detroit Rock City. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and also they did the harmonies in Black Diamond on the first record, and Paul also might have done the harmonies at the end of Deuce on the first record as well. I'm not sure if Ace doubled it or if they played, those parts together. I don't know. But as far as an actual, song where there's two separate guitar solos, I believe I Want You is the first one to have that.
Paul starts, and you can tell right away when the handoff happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing with like I Stole Your Love. I mean, that's from Love Gun, but you can totally hear the difference in approach and sound and everything when it goes from Paul to Ace, which they both went from Paul to Ace. You can just hear, and it's great too, because it's so, both parts are great and they're both super complementary. It's not like one style that is just totally different left field and then going to something that's totally different. It's very complementary guitar playing.
Yeah, no, for sure. What? So you got any thoughts on the track I Want You? How do you like that?
Yeah, I mean, we were obviously talking about how Ace, really started to kind of, get in the groove per se, working with Eddie Kramer and, really getting some great results in the guitar department. Well, there's a couple points in, Paul Stanley's vocal career. I think, around this time in 76 and then later on, I think in the mid 80s, he really, again started really redefining himself as a vocalist. But I think that this is the first time, going from, just kind of a, mid-range, decent rock voice to really, really trying to, hit some crazy stuff vocally. Mm-hmm. And he even started, doing some experimental stuff, not that it made a difference, but like when he recorded I Want You, he actually set up a step ladder and he climbed to the top of the step ladder to record the vocals, thinking that if he was physically higher, that he could sing higher because he was physically higher, which is, obviously a mental trick. But I mean, these were things that, he was attempting to do just to try to improve his range to be even more dynamic than he was, on Destroyer or the other 3 studio albums before that.
Yeah, that's a crazy story, man. That's a crazy story. Climbing up a lot. And then the other thing that we talked about too was the tuning on this record. It's not all Kiss is normally they tune down E flat and they play all their songs in E flat. But the tuning on this record, it's not E flat, and it's not E. It's kind of
Right.
somewhere in between.
Yeah, and I anybody who's a guitar player who's ever played along to Rock and Roll Over, this
Yeah.
is the first Kiss album that if you're tuned to E flat and you start trying to play along to some of the songs, you're not going to be perfectly in tune with
Yep.
songs.
That's
And I always, I never figured that they would just, well, I'm going to tune just a little bit out of E flat, or I'm just going to tune a little below 440. I don't think, Eddie Kramer would have went with that. So my theory on that, and I'll tell you the reason why, is I think, again, Paul really started pushing himself vocally. And I think what started happening is he was starting to sing sharp because he was pushing his voice more and he was singing sharp. So what they did is they actually took the tape and they sped the tape up a little bit just to get the pitch a little bit higher. Because remember, back then there wasn't Audacity. You couldn't adjust the pitch of the music without adjusting the speed.
right.
And so I think what they did is before they cut the vocals is they kind of found Paul's comfort zone with his songs where he was singing, and kind of adjusted it there. So when he cut his vocals, he was in more of a comfortable range as opposed to just singing in E flat. And the reason that I think that this is to be is, one, if you were to take any of those songs that aren't exactly in E flat and then you pitch it to E flat, Paul's voice sounds slow. It doesn't sound on. So I don't think that it was done in post after he recorded his vocals. The other reason I believe that is because when they did Making Love live, if anybody's a guitar player, you know that Making Love is written all in open E.
Yeah.
And when they did the song live, they actually played the song in F, where Paul used a capo, and then Gene and Ace had to play the song, kind of screwy, playing all octaves and stuff, playing everything fretted a half step higher in F. But you can clearly tell that this, because even now, if they play the song, they play it all in E. So I'm sure,
Well,
I really think it had to do with Paul's vocal, really kind of feeling his oats as a vocalist that they started doing things with the pitch.
yeah, as a guitar player trying to play along with Rock and Roll Over, you notice that right away. Wait a minute. This isn't an E flat. Like you'll pick it up right away. It's yeah. So there is definitely something funny going on there. By the way, as we go through this, folks, if you have questions for me or for John, please throw a bunch of question marks in front of the question so that I can see the questions. Because I am streaming to Facebook, I'm streaming to Twitch, and I'm also streaming to YouTube. So the at Guitar Hack is not lighting up on my screen here. Mitch Weisman's got a comment. He says, and on Look It Up in person, kind of produced the vocal track. Sounded great. Not much more to. He's talking about Paul's vocals being basically very quick to get his vocals down. Awesome.
Yeah, because Mitch worked with Kiss on Animalize, and I think aside from Rock and Roll Over, Animalize is the only other Kiss record where there's songs that are again in between E flat and 440. So I think it was during that time in the 80s where again Paul again started really trying to push the dynamics of his voice, and they adjusted things so it was a little bit higher, so he could really hit the notes that he wanted to.
CK is asking me, am I still on lockdown? Yes, unfortunately, we're still on lockdown in Toronto. Yes. Yeah. So for me, I Want You, that's definitely one of the highlights on this. And I mean, when they play it live on Alive 2, it's also, sounds great there. It's definitely one of the highlights on this record, one of their better songs. So the next one, is Take Me. So, Take Me is not one of my personal favorites on this record. It's a good song. It's not a great song. It's another Paul song. It's based on, basically it's another riff type of tune. One thing about this record, and this is sort of a really, and I'm going to talk about this on a show I'm doing next week. It's not an entire Kiss show, but Kiss is going to come into it. Is there's a lot of lyrics based around, let's call it coxmanship, shall we? So I Want You being one of them. Take Me is another one. There's a lot of those types of songs on here, and Take Me is like the quintessential one of those. Lyrics are very cool, but not one of my favorite songs. The one thing I will say though is, um, even when the songs aren't the best, Ace's solos on all of these songs are exceptional. I think this is. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to say it's the best Ace solos on one record, but it's got to be in the top 3 for me. What are your thoughts on Take Me?
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing is there's a demo that circulates, and it has Peter playing that I don't know what you call it, the hi hat lifts, and he's doing it throughout the whole song. So it's kind of different, to hear the way the song was originally written versus the way it wound up, live. And Kiss hadn't done that song live for a long time until they brought it back. Foundations Forum, they played it in '93, and that was like really cool to hear them play that. I love Take Me. I think it's great. I think it's one of the better songs on the record. The thing that I find interesting about the song is that you have Gene playing the riff for the chorus throughout the whole song on the bass, while they're playing a different riff over the top.
I gotta listen to that again
During the verse. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's doing the falsetto on the
choruses.
Yeah.
Yeah, which he hates.
Yeah. Take me. Yeah. That's funny. All right. What else we got on here? Next one. Oh, the classic Calling Dr. Love. Yeah, that's one of the best Gene songs going. I love the way it starts off, just those big chords. And I just mentioned Ace's guitar solos. That first note, and all he's doing, I could be wrong, John. You play the song a million times, but he's just doing a dinosaur bend. I think it's the G that he's pulling down. Is that the first note in that solo?
The very first note of the first.
Yeah.
I think the first part of the solo, he's doing the hammer-ons. He's doing the hammer-ons, and then he goes into that big bend. It's F sharp.
Oh, is it that F sharp thing that he does?
Yeah, he did that a lot. He would bend a F sharp note into a full G, and then like it shocked me. When he would bend the F sharp to the G, then he'd play the open D and the open G. So he's playing basically a full G chord.
Yeah,
so that was something that Ace did a lot in his playing. But yeah, I mean that solo is just great. And the thing I always wondered too is Ace rarely ever played any guitars that had a whammy bar. So I think what he did in some of those licks later on in the song is I think he literally just took the tuning knob and just detuned it in some of I think that's, and it's great stuff that, very experimental type stuff, for Ace.
And I'm going to give Peter Criss a little bit of love because the drums on that, I mean, not hi-hat, cowbell aside, I mean, I love the cowbell, but his drumming on that just propels that song right along. I mean, I love the groove that he's laying down on that song. I'm not the biggest Peter Criss fan, but I'll call a spade, and his drums on that song I think are the other highlight. It's that solo, and Gene's demon delivery, but the drums too, man, really cool, really cool. That's one that definitely a highlight on that record.
Yeah, and I want to comment on Cecil's comment. Yeah, during Fraley's comment era, Ace did put those Washburn Wonder Bars on his Les Paul. Thank God they were the type of Les Pauls that he didn't have to route the guitars, or otherwise he would have destroyed all those classic guitars by putting that on there. So thank God he pulled off, because he didn't need them. Ace never needed a whammy bar.
Yeah, and as a purist, if you put a whammy bar on a Les Paul, that's that's blasphemy, man. You don't do that. You just don't. It's like, a Les Paul is meant to be just what it is, a Les Paul. Yeah. All right. Then we have Ladies' Room. Again, going back to the the coxmanship type songs and meet you in the Ladies' Room. That's a Gene song. That's a sort of a rock and rolly type of song. A little pinky finger, and not a bad tune. Pretty good tune. Pretty good tune. Pretty good tune. I like it. I like it a lot better on the live too.
I do too.
Yeah,
I think the song really we were talking about before the show started, how some of those songs on the records really took a new life on the live albums. Like the songs from the first 3 records on Kiss Alive. Cold Gin is a brand new animal on Kiss Alive. So I think the same thing with songs on Alive too, like Ladies' Room just really grew teeth that it just kind of didn't have on Rock and Roll Over.
Yeah, Parasite would be another one I throw in there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, the whole Hotter Than Hell production is just that destroyed that album. There's so much great stuff on that album that just it sounds like mud.
Yeah, you know what though? I mean, I've talked to people that they actually like it, the production, because it makes it sound like a dark album, like sort of a little bit of a Sabbathy vibe, And I don't know. I mean, it works for some songs, like Strange Ways. It kind of works a little bit. That sort of, but as a whole, I would much prefer it to sound a lot cleaner than what it does. But
yeah, I mean, when Kiss did the re-recording album, the Jikoku Ritsuden, or on Kiss on Sonic Boom, it's called Kiss Classics. When they redid Hotter Than Hell, I know some people are purists and they don't like, Tommy and Eric playing the original guys' stuff and all that. But I think that version of Hotter Than Hell really is an eye-opener of, man, if they would have had good production quality on Hotter Than Hell, how great of a record that was. I mean, look at Dress to Kill. Dress to Kill is probably the cleanest, best sounding 70s Kiss album. And if Hotter Than Hell would have sounded like Dress to Kill, I think it just would have been a much better record.
Yeah.
Not to digress from Rock and Roll Over, but we're just talking about how some of those songs changed in a live format, and production does have a big hand sometimes, and perception of songs. So
I can make or break for sure. Yeah. The other thing that I like on Ladies' Room too is and Gene doesn't get a lot of props for his bass playing.
Right.
I love his playing on that song. He's got that always moving, not necessarily a walking bass line, but he's like constantly, underpinning everything. And he's he's never been one of those guys that just hammers on the root. You know what I mean? He's always been a mobile bass player.
Well, up until the 80s, then in the 80s, he kind of switched to that. And they Bruce Kulick, he calls it the monster plod. That's what Gene started doing in the 80s. You know, I don't know if it just be out of laziness or just change. You know, yeah, but you know, obviously what they were doing in the 80s was a lot different than the 70s. So, you know, sometimes different material calls for a different approach. You know.
Yeah, but yeah, it's a really good bass playing on that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about where the writing is so small on this. Oh, love him and leave him. No, wait a minute. Hang on. I can't even see this. Oh, well, this is not the running order that's on the record because I got Baby Driver listed here next. Let's talk about Baby Driver for a little bit. So, Baby Driver, another Peter Criss / Stan Penridge song, and Kiss took it and completely, basically redid the song. They probably just kept the title, but it would. Have you heard the original Baby Driver? I know there's a bootleg running around of Gene singing.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is that there's the Baby Driver version. I think the one from the Stan Penridge days, and then there's the outtake when they actually tried having Gene sing the song.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the odd thing that you notice about Peter Criss songs that they always, one criticism that they've always made of Peter, which is 100% true, is Peter Criss does not know how to write a song. Peter Criss does not know standard songwriting formulas. He doesn't know the difference between a chorus, a bridge, a verse. And if you sit there and play along to Baby Driver, that arrangement is so bizarre that there's really no rhyme nor reason to the way that song is written. And you know, I mean, you might say that that's great, but I mean, it's very odd. And I think what you probably heard on the version of Gene Simmons singing it was them trying to make some sort of sense of an arrangement for the song. And then, of course, you know, Ace just drove it home with all the licks, the double bends, all that stuff. I mean, Ace just like, I think if you would have had that song without Ace's lead guitar playing, I think the song just would have, you know,
it'd have been flat. Yeah, it would have been lifeless.
And I don't mean E flat either.
Ace absolutely makes that song. You know, we were talking off air, and you were saying that this was the only song, and I think you're right about it, where you sing a line, you play a lick, you sing a line, you play a lick, and that had this, and Ace is doing these really cool fills through every line. It's like Ace playing through the whole thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because that type of guitar playing, like generally in a Kiss song, you know, you might have a beginning little lead in the beginning of the song, and then you'll have, you know, the main solo, then you'll have like an outro lead. Ace wasn't never really one of those guys that did a lot of just little licks playing off the vocals. And in Baby Driver, he does that throughout the whole song, which is that's like the antithesis of most 80s hard rock songs, is that, you know, you'll have, you know, the vocalist sing a line, and then you'll have, you know, the lead guitar player play a lick off of the vocal, and then another line, and then another lick, you know. So that Ace doing that in 76 was very, you know, that was very early on, almost 80s hard rock metal type guitar playing. Yeah,
and you know that line he plays on the chorus too underneath, like "Go baby drive out," wah, 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 wah. Like, I mean, that's classic Ace, man. That whole song is full of Ace-isms.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Because of him playing, that's one of my that's a hidden gem in the Kiss catalog, I think, for me anyway, is Baby Driver. It's just such a cool song, you know, and Ace makes it it's because of Ace and what he's doing. Because there's really, I mean, that and well, Peter screaming his ass off, which thank God, like we were saying off air, that it didn't turn into a Gene song. It's better that Peter singing it. Nobody could scream better than Peter and Kiss.
No. No, and again, I think the idea was just more or less them trying to come up with an arrangement that made some sort of sense, because probably what Peter gave them was very, very loose. You know, I think we were talking earlier about how, you know, the whole Kiss songwriting really started to change with those two records, Destroyer and Rock and Roll Over. And I think that's where Peter Criss started to lose it as a drummer. I mean, if you look at the first three Kiss records, were basically songs that had a main riff that they milked the main riff with very, very few changes in the song. And Peter Criss, if you know, live, just was phenomenal. And then during Destroyer and Rock and Roll Over and Love Gun, they changed the formula of the songs. And while Peter added a lot of great stuff drum wise, if you watch his playing during the live shows, he really loses a lot. I think a lot of his fire and a lot of his power that he added, you know, during the first tour up through Alive. And I think it was that change in the songwriting that really, you know, Peter had to, instead of just him, you know, powering through the songs and jamming, he had to concentrate. And for Peter to have to think about what we was playing instead of just feeling the music, I think that's where Peter started to lose it as a drummer in Kiss.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I've never really put that together, but that's an interesting point.
That's why you have me here.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for being here, John. Filling in the gaps, man. Love him and leave him. Or love him, leave him. There's another typical Coxmanship song. There's another Gene song. I love the groove of that song. It's got such a really cool groove. It's very tight. And again, a fantastic solo from Ace. You know, very short, but Ace, song within a song, puts it in there. And he used I'm trying to, what effect would that have been? A little bit of flange on that? Something?
Or a phaser, maybe?
A phaser or something? Yeah, something like that. Some time-based thing, yeah. But just a great song, great solo. You know, I love that. That's one of my personal favorites. I love Love and Leaving.
And again, that just shows a difference of Ace being in a comfortable work environment. You know, working with Eddie Kramer, it really brought out a lot of greatness in Ace, where, you know, Ace, you know, he really didn't feel that, you know, with Ezrin, you know, he just was kind of always felt under the gun, so to speak. And, you know, Eddie Kramer, you know, they did so much in terms of working out tones and different guitars and stuff like that, you know, you get Ace in the right working environment and you can do great stuff.
Yeah, really, really inventive stuff. I mean, you know, a lot of pull-offs, hammer-ons on that solo. And then the way he ends it, where he just does that one rip and run, you know, and then he ends it with 6. Oh man, I just love that shit, man. You know, that's the other thing too. Ace played a lot of 6. Well, you know, you play Ace in your cover band or in your tribute band. I love those runs he does with 6 all the way up or all the way down. It just sounds so cool.
Yeah, his Alive 2 solo that has a lot of that, you know, like up and down.
This is one that probably I've mentioned this as my favorite Kiss song of all time, and this is another hidden gem. You know, a few of them on here, Baby Driver being one, this being the other one, Mr. Speed. This is a song that I absolutely love. I love the riff. It's so, I don't know, it's Paul Stanley working at like another level, man. Like that riff, like that is so cool. That riff, the tune, you know, the lyrics, just everything, the groove, his delivery, you know, and again, Ace, you know, puts the icing on top. That's one song that frustrates the hell out of me. I mean, It's too late now, but I would have loved to see that enter as one of their, in their set list as one of their mainstays. But I remember saying once that they've never played it live, and somebody told me that they did on some special occasion show or whatever. But that's one song that I wish they'd friggin' put that, did it live, maybe recorded it live or something.
Yeah, the only time they did that live, actually all the way through, is they did it at one of the convention shows.
There you go.
Yeah, in '95.
Like you're talking when they were doing the acoustic thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember asking them to play it when I saw them at doing the acoustic before they did the gig. This is recent. Well, I would have been what tour was that? When the Monster tour.
Okay.
Yeah, and I remember I did the meet and greet. That's the only time I've ever done it. And I remember literally standing right in front of Paul Stanley. Like if I stretched out my hand, I could scratch his nose. That's how close he was.
He'd sue you.
Yeah, he'd sue me. And because we were I was right there, I was yelling. I would say like good 80% of what they did was songs that I was screaming at them to play because I'm standing right in front of them. And one of the ones I asked for was Mr. Speed. And I remember him. I don't know if they played the whole thing. I think they played a part of it anyways. But he played the riff on the acoustic, and that's other level stuff, man. That's like, for me, that's Paul Stanley at his absolute prime, his peak. Gene Schmidt's got a question. Anything special happening at your show on Saturdays? Asking you, John.
Yes. It's a pointed question from Sir Schmidt. If anybody who's been following the show, we had put out a tribute album called Buffalo Rock City, like you were mentioning earlier in the
link below, Bandcamp, if you want to purchase it. It's awesome.
Thank you. One of the main reasons of doing the album is we wanted to do something to give back to our community, and the benefits from the sales of the CD go to Compass House. And Compass House is a foundation that helps the homeless youth population here in Western New York. And from when we released the album in December until now, after covering the expenses of recording the album, we've raised $2,000, and we're going to have a check ceremony where we're going to be giving one of the representatives from Compass House a $2,000 check on Saturday at our show at the Rapids Theater. So this Saturday, April 24th in Niagara Falls, New York. If you can come, we'd love to see you there. And again, it's going to be a special occasion where we're actually going to be able to, give back. And, I'll be honest with you, when we had, started talking about doing the tribute record and raising money for charity, there was people that doubted our sincerity. They're like, oh no, they're just going to take the money and put it in their pocket, blah, blah, blah. I'm serious. Literally, people came back to me and told me that, and I was very offended by that. So now we wanted to make it a point of doing this to show this is for real. And hopefully this will be the first of several donations that we can do from selling this CD. And again, I want to thank you, Hack, for helping us promote the record and letting people know, that it's, I think it's a great record. It's something we're very proud of.
No, it is a great record. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I mean, if you're a Kiss geek, you got to hear it, because to hear these, if you're a Kiss geek and you've heard these songs as many times as I have, and hearing them done the way you guys did it, where you're absolutely nailing tones. I mean, even like little pinch harmonics and feedback, that as a Kiss fan, it's like you're listening for that, and there it is. It's like, it just absolutely blows my mind how you guys nailed it. It's incredible, man. And the overall sound of it sounds uniform. It's not, a bunch of tracks slapped together. There's uniformity to it. Like, you can listen to it from beginning to end, and it flows wonderfully, right?
Yeah,
absolutely great.
The whole point of the record is we were obviously aware that there's been many Kiss tribute records out there. And of course, you're always going to have some people want to hear, you do a reggae version of I Was Made for Loving You, or somebody wants to hear something, note for note like it is in the record. So you're never going to be able to please 100% of the people 100% of the time. But, I tell you, I've never heard anybody do the solo for I've Had Enough the way Gene Schmidt did it. I've never heard anybody play the Back on the Street solo like Gene Schmidt did it. You know what I'm saying? There's, so I mean, if you find that boring or not, exciting because it's authentic, well, then it's not for you. But I think having, some of those recordings, 1984, 1988, the quality was good but not great. So if we can put out a 2020 recording with today's technology and make it sound a little fresher, a little bit better, and make it authentic, I'm happy with it. I think it's fun.
Well, Gene absolutely crushed it, man. Absolutely crushed it. Here's a question. Brian asks, Guitar Hack, what do you and John think about the cover of Rock and Roll Over? I like Destroyer better, and maybe Love Gun too, but it's close to number 3 for me, not counting Alive.
Well, I'm glad that he asked that question, because when we were talking before about my interviews with Sean Delaney, Delaney made a point about Rock and Roll Over, so it all kinds of full circle here. He told me that it was his idea, the design for Rock and Roll Over, because he said back in the day when you go into record stores, what you could see for a record, the most important thing you could see was the top third of the record. So he came up with the design, though, that no matter how the record was put into the record bin, no matter which way it was placed, you would always see Kiss and Rock and Roll Over and 2 of the members at the top. And that was Sean's concept and his design. So
that is very smart, man. That is very smart. Gene's saying something. Hack was instrumental in helping us promote. Wow, you guys, man. You guys are. It was my pleasure. It was my pleasure, and you guys made the rounds, man. I saw you guys did a lot of shows to promote it, which was awesome to see. All right, if anyone's got any more questions, throw a bunch of question marks in front of the question, and we will see them immediately. Where did we leave off? Did we talk already? Oh, Love Them and Leave Them. Did you have anything you wanted to mention about that before we move on? Or no, sorry, Mr. Speed.
The interesting thing about Mr. Speed is that Ace's solo on that is so great, but the demo with Bob Kulick, I think, is equally as great. I think it sounds great. I don't know if you've heard that from the box set.
I have the box set, so I must have.
Yeah, the 2001 box set. I have that. Version of that, and Bob Kulick plays on that, and he did a great job too. So that's interesting to be able to. It's like when they re-released Destroyer Resurrected, you were able to hear what we heard all these years, the Dick Wagner Sweet Pain guitar solo, and then they finally released the unfinished Ace Frehley guitar solo from Sweet Pain. So it's interesting to be able to hear 2 different players, their different takes on playing the song.
Well, I mean, just to mention Bob Kulick for a minute, and around that same time period, like his playing on side 4 of Alive is stellar. Like, he could have just, his leads and his sensibility, he could have easily got the gig just as easily as Ace. Let
me put out there as a bit of a teaser, if there was going to be a volume 2 of Buffalo Rock City, you can guarantee that there's going to be a major Bob Kulick tribute that. If there's a volume 2 of Buffalo Rock City.
Big if. Cool. All right. So, Mr. Speed, all right. So now we've got See You in Your Dreams. So Gene did it on this record. I guess he wasn't thrilled with it because he went and did it again on his solo album, and where he brought a bunch of guest players. I think Rick Nielsen's on that, Joe Perry's on that. But not a bad song. Not a bad Ace solos again, I think crushes, but not a bad song. A little bit different, and for the that's a song that is, I think, is the most different sounding of the songs on the record.
Yeah, I would, in my opinion, I would probably say that's the weakest song on the record.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for me, it would be that and Take Me. Those two would be the weakest songs on the record. But not a bad song, Not a bad song. He's got the backup singers going on that, Not bad at all. Not much else to say really about See You in Your Dreams. So, Hard Luck Woman. So there's a few things we can mention about Hard Luck Woman. First off, and most Kiss fans know the story. Paul Stanley at the time had this thing where he would put himself in the mindset of other artists and try to write songs of that style. And he was in a Rod Stewart frame of mind. He's like, let me write a Rod Stewart type song. And he came up with Hard Luck Woman. And his full intention was to write the song and give it to Rod Stewart. Where Peter Criss heard the song and said, no, I want to sing that. And of course, he ended up singing it. And it kind of made sense because, he did Beth, and let's let him do the ballad on this one. And I should say, too, that, the whole power ballad became a big deal later in the 80s. But Kiss was sort of one of those first bands to kind of do that, where starting with Destroyer, where they had that one ballad, and they kind of carried that over to Rock and Roll Over. And actually, no, Love Gun, there's no ballad on that, is there? No.
Yeah, yes, there is. There's the cover, the horrendous cover of Then She Kissed Me.
Yeah, Then She Kissed Me, yeah. But it's a really good song. Again, Paul. I think Paul at this point was just absolutely knocking that out of the park in the songwriting department. It's a fantastic song. Actually, I don't know, the Garth Brooks version on Kiss My Ass is actually really good too.
Yeah.
A good song, and I think Peter sounds great on it. It's just a great Kiss song.
Yeah, it was funny because I was trying to study up on the record, and I was Peter Criss's word for word quote was when he heard that Paul wanted to give the song to Garth Brooks. He goes, "Let me have the song, fucko." That's what he said.
Yeah, you mean Rod Stewart? Yeah, because it's in that same vein of You Wear It Well and that sort of vein, right? Of what the acoustic stuff Rod was doing back then. But the thing is, the song, I mean, it was supposed to be really a follow-up to Beth, but it didn't really do the business that Beth did. It was not a big hit, and I don't know why it wasn't a big hit. I think it's a fantastic song. It should have really I would think done a lot better than it did, but I don't know, they just couldn't repeat Beth. And I think this is a way better song than Beth, but that's just me. I was never a huge fan of Beth, to be honest with you. But
you know what might have hurt it too is they never really played it live that much during the Rock and Roll Over tour. They only did it like a couple times.
Well, and they did it. It's on Alive too, but there's songs on Alive too that they just played during sound check.
Alive 2 is fake though. That's
what I'm saying. There's a couple. Tomorrow and Tonight is another one.
Yeah, they recorded it as sound check,
and then threw some audience over top of it because they never did those songs live.
Well, they did Hard Luck Woman live like 2 times on the Rock and Roll Over tour.
Oh, that was it. But but I don't think
that's what I'm saying though. It's like the song might have taken off more if they would have done it live. If they would have presented it live in their show, people might have caught on to it more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess maybe they didn't do it live because it was kind of hard to play acoustic live, or just didn't fit the the sequencing of the show. I don't
Yeah,
know. Must be some reason for not doing it, but it's an awesome song. And then the last song, "Making Love." Uh,
yes.
man, what a riff! That's one of my favorite Paul Stanley riffs. It's and the I got it. The drums sound really good on this song, particularly. And Ace is playing this ripping solo that if you listen to him on a live too, he can't do it. He's just approximating it, right? Because I don't know how the hell how anybody could play those runs that fast, because that's insane. Are you able to play that note for note the way Ace does it on this record? If you can, I think your
I
hat off to you.
I actually prefer to play it the way he did it on a live too.
Okay.
That's my preference. I just like on a live too at the very end of the solo, he does those really crazy pinch harmonics on the last couple notes of the solo, and I just think that sounds awesome, and that's the way I prefer to play it. Um, the thing that I do like about the studio version is I like those overdubs, the acoustic overdubs during
Mhm.
the pre-choruses,
Yeah.
which you know, I think that might be, other than that and maybe Got Love for Sale, that might be like the last couple Kiss songs where they actually threw in like really cool acoustic overdubs with the electric guitar, because they
Yeah.
did a lot of that in the earlier records, like in like Come On and Love Me, and on Dress to Kill, but they stopped doing that. I think probably Got Love for Sale, probably the last one, but on Making Love, those overdubs, the acoustic overdubs, to me, that's what really makes that studio version special.
Yeah, that drum thing at the tag out, that that Peter Chris, where he's hitting all the toms.
Yeah,
That just sounds so freaking cool, man. I
yeah,
Yeah, again, I'll take my hat off to Peter on the drums for that. I thought it's really cool. The acoustic thing. So here's what I heard. I don't know if this is true or not, but at the time in the early '70s, there's a Canadian band that was the biggest Canadian band. You know, again, then they were that Rush got the title after them. But there's a band called BTO, Bachman Turner Overdrive, and they had a lot of songs where they had like acoustic going along with the electric. And the rumor I heard was that Kiss, basically took that idea from Bachman Turner Overdrive and tried to incorporate acoustic guitars in with their electric. So I don't know if there's any truth to that, but that could have been an influence at the time, because that's when BTO was massive, was the early '70s. So I don't know if there's any truth to that, but
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, obviously, anytime you use an acoustic and you use that to fill up the electric guitar to build on that, it definitely gives the sound depth. I'm sure they weren't the only bands doing it, but as far as whether Kiss was influenced by them or not, I never heard that before.
yeah, they did that a lot. Where not just like where it was tucked in, but where it was like it was there right along with,
Right.
where it's audible. Because
Yes.
I mean, one famous thing going back to Destroyer now, where effect that Bob Ezrin would do is he would lay down piano underneath the guitars to beef them up. So there's pianos tucked under the guitars for some of the songs on Destroyer. I can't remember
Yeah,
what.
like in Detroit Rock City, got
Correct.
and God of Thunder.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think Shout It Out Loud too might be another one
yeah,
where he's got piano tucked underneath there. Yeah.
yeah. Basically, they use the piano to double a lot of the bass notes on Destroyer.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that's it. That's album spotlight on Rock and Roll Over. For anyone, and I'm gonna do a show. Actually, let me talk about next week. I'm gonna have we're gonna do a show with Pete Pardo's coming back on the channel. and we're going to do a show where we pick 5 bands. Okay. And the theme of the show is, I don't know anything about this band. What record would you suggest as a good representation of what that band does? And I'll let you in on a secret. For me, one of the bands will be Kiss, and this will be the record that I will be talking about. So that's next week's show. So check that out. So there's a little preview for next week. But any last things you wanted to mention about the record, or anything you want to talk about upcoming? I mean, you've got this event Saturday. Anything else going on with you, John?
Yeah, I mean, we're just, until something else comes out. Like I said, if there were to be a volume 2 of Buffalo Rock City sometime in 2022, maybe if there were to be one, we're going to keep, pushing this record. We have some videos. They're going to be coming out, promoting. We're going to have Hard Times, which features Phil Schaus.
Yeah.
Yep, we're going to be doing a video for Back on the Streets. And, of course, our good friend Gene Schmidt, who's, commenting like a crazy man. He's going to, be in the video. And our good friend Fatty King, he's also going to be in the video, too. This guy, when you see him hack, this guy looks just like Dana Strum. And the funny thing is, he's got video footage of when Kiss was here. Kiss did that Alive 3. Do you remember when Kiss did the Alive 3 like meet and greet tour?
Oh, is it okay?
Maybe it didn't come to Canada, but it was in the United States.
Okay.
They came to Buffalo, McKinley Mall, and it was funny because my friend who's in the video, he filmed meeting each one of the guys, and when he gets to Eric Singer, he's filming Eric Singer, and Eric Singer just stops and goes, "Anybody ever tell you look like Dana Strum?" So, like, this is 93, so now here we are, 21, and he's going to be portraying Dana Strum in the Back on the Streets video.
Oh, so, very cool.
Yeah, there's some minutia for you.
Very cool. Gene Schmidt's question mark. Gene Schmidt looks just like Vinnie Vincent, in my opinion.
And that's the reason why Gene won't be portraying Vinnie Vincent in the video.
You gonna put on a wig or what's going on? I'll leave it right there. Anyway,
so no, folks, we have some secrets. We have some secrets about the video we don't want to give away yet, but when it comes out, you'll see it'll be a very nice tribute to Vinnie Vincent. The guy gets a lot of hate, but the guy's a great guitar player, great songwriter, and Back on the Streets is just a great song, and we feel that it deserves a very cool music video. So,
for sure.
Again, first we'll be coming out Hard Times, and then look down the road in a few months, you'll see the video for Back on the Streets.
So, folks, if you would like to support John, Jeffrey, and the Buffalo Rock City, below I have a link to the Bandcamp page where you can order a copy of Buffalo Rock City. You can order it digital download. You can order the CD, the vinyl now as well, right?
Yes, the vinyl is available in pre-order right now. It comes out in July, but the pre-order sales have been crazy. It's selling. I can't believe how fast this thing is selling. So I've just been letting everybody know, if you want the vinyl, please pre-order it, because we're doing a very limited edition run of it. And once it's gone, it's gone. So.
All right. Good to know. Good to know. And also, if you would like to follow John on Facebook, I have the link to John's Facebook page as well. And John happens to play Ace Frehley in a tribute band, Kiss This. So check out his Facebook below. If you want to help support the Guitar Hack channel, I have I'm wearing all my swag today. I got hats, I got shirts, I got mugs, I got hoodies, all that stuff. That would all be much appreciated. There's also a PayPal down there. That would be much appreciated. If you don't follow me on Facebook or Instagram, those links are down there below. If you happen to be new to the channel, please consider liking and subscribing for more content like this. and I do a weekly show at 8 o'clock every Wednesday. So, any last things you wanted to mention, John, before we wrap up?
I just want to say thank you again for having me on. I love talking about Kiss. I love Kiss. Without them, we wouldn't be doing cool shows like this and having fun. So, and this day and age where sometimes fun is hard to come by, we just got to thank that there's bands like Kiss and great rock and roll music out there that can keep us in a good frame of mind, and God bless. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially in this day and age. So, folks, thanks everybody for watching. Check out the show next week with Pete Pardo. That show should be a lot of fun. You guys rock, and we'll catch you all next week. John, just hang on, and take care, everybody. Have a great week.
See you, Mitch Weisman. We'll see you